Let's have a look at how to make equivalent fractions. Now, firstly look at the word equivalent. Equal is the word that we can see here in the first part of this, and that tells us that an equivalent fraction is an equal fraction. Now, why do you need equivalent fractions? Well, when you want to add and subtract fractions, you need them to have the same denominator. It's almost like them being in the same currency, so that then you can compare them and you can add and subtract them. So let's take a fraction like 3/4. How could we make it look different but still have the same value? In other words, be the same amount of pizza? Well, if I was to cut each of these 4 slices of pizza in half, how many slices would I have? I would have 8 slices. And how many am I going to eat? The ones that are shaded? That's 6, isn't it? So 6 out of 8 is the same as 3 out of 4. Now what's the difference? Well, when you cut a pizza up into 8s, they're much smaller slices, aren't they? But to make up for it, you can have twice as many of them because they're only half the size. You've still got the same amount of pizza. So being able to transfer between 3/4 and 6/8 is handy. Often you're given a fraction like this and you need to convert it down to simplify it. Or you might want to actually make it bigger, the numbers bigger like this, so that they can communicate better with other fractions. Can we go bigger? Absolutely. As long as all we do is multiply or divide the top and the number by the same thing, the fraction will be equivalent. Let's have a think about it. Instead of dividing these in half, what if I divided them in half again? How many pieces of pizza are there now? Well, now there's 16 pieces of pizza. And how many do I have? I have all but these 4. So I have 12 slices. So 12 out of 16, or 12/16, is the same as 3 out of 4, or 3/4. Now, to look for a quick way to do it so that you don't have to always draw it out and cut it up, you can think, what have I multiplied the top by here? And what have I multiplied the bottom by here? They have to be the same thing. As long as they are the same thing, you will have equivalent fractions. And it works with dividing as well. If we wanted to say, take a fraction like 7/21, we could say, what is that equivalent to? Well, sometimes you'll see a question like this and you'll be thinking, oh, I want to make this into thirds. Well, what happened to the bottom? 21 divided by 7 is 3. So whatever happened to the bottom, the same has to happen to the top. And here we're dividing by 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1. So I can tell that 7/21 and 1/3 are the same. Now, if I'd been given 1/3 and had to figure out how many 21s that would be, I could say I'm going to multiply by 7, going in this direction, because 3 7s are 21. So 1 times 7 is 7. And that's the way it works. Let's have a look at another quick example. If I have 4/5 and I want to change that to an equivalent fraction that involves 15ths, and I need to know what this number is at the top, I think, what's happened to the bottom? Now remember, I can only multiply and divide here. That's because multiplying this number effectively cuts the pizza up into more pieces. And if I multiply, and that makes the pieces smaller, right? Really tiny slivers. And so that means I have to have more of them, okay? So it makes sense that you have to multiply or divide. You cannot do the same thing. Let's just say we take a half and say, what if we add 1 to the top and add 1 to the bottom? That's not the same thing, is it? It doesn't work to add something to the top and add something to the bottom, because we know that a half looks like this and we know that 2/3 looks like that, and they're nowhere near being the same thing. Okay, so we need to only multiply and divide. We say, what happened to the denominator to get from 5 up to 15? If we can only times or divide, we have multiplied by 3, so I need to do the same to the top. Multiply that by 3, and 4/3 are 12. That's right. So 4/5 must be the same as 12/15. What about going to smaller numbers? What about if I have 35/56 and I want to make that the simplest fraction that I can? Well, I need to look at both these numbers and say, do they both share the same factor? Are they in the same times tables? And having a quick look, I can spot that they're both in the 7 times tables. So that means I could say, that's the same as if we divide this by 7, we have to divide this by 7. And 35 divided by 7 is 5. and 56 divided by 7 is 8. So I know that 5/8 and 35/56 is exactly the same amount of pizza. This is 5 big pieces, and this is 35 tiny little slivers, but the exact same amount.